It is Friday, July 11th, and the thermonuclear fallout continuing over Epstein. Dan Bongino getting ready to resign his post in protest over the closure of this case. That's what we're being told. There is so much happening here behind the scenes, and we know that because we're being told that, and because nobody is speaking publicly. Nobody from the administration, not even Trump. Everyone's gone silent. Completely silent about this. The whole thing stinks, and there's something very, very wrong with all of this. Also, former Representative George Santos exposing a creepy story about what really happens on Capitol Hill, he says. We're going to show you that. It involves adult activity in cages inside government buildings, apparently, and more stories from around the country, including a 180 on Ukraine. Trump approving direct weapon shipments for the first time to Ukraine from Pentagon reserves. What is happening here? So it's day 4, the 4th day since Maine Justice announced the closure of the Epstein case, announcing that's it. Nothing more will be released about Epstein. Case officially closed. Stop asking about Epstein. That was 4 days ago. And since then, it has erupted, a thermonuclear eruption that just keeps getting worse. We've covered it every day, not because we want to, we don't want to, but because we have to. This is vitally important. And this is what separates our side from the other side. When they screw up over there, they fall in line, folks, and they run cover. That's not happening. We can't do that. We have to call it like we see it. If they get away with this, thinking we, the American people, don't have a right to know what really happened here, when we elected them to tell us what happened, and it's now coming to a boiling point. Deputy Director Dan Bongino in talks to resign from his post over the handling of this. That's what we're hearing. Separately as well from the Axios scoop. First, Laura Loomer reported this, then Axios claiming Dan is furious over Bondi's handling, her botching of this case. Isn't it interesting, though, how Axios keeps getting these scoops? That's the outlet that published the 2-page memo from DOJ about the closure of the Epstein case originally, and multiple other leaks about Epstein, this Trump-hating outlet. Now they learn about what they're calling a major clash between Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Pam. Writing in the piece, 2 sources familiar with Bongino's position say he was increasingly displeased with Bondi's handling of the Epstein case because she had publicly overpromised and underdelivered disclosures about an Epstein client list that apparently never existed. Pam said her piece, Dan said his piece. It did not end on friendly terms, according to one person familiar with the story. The administration saying Dan is still on the job, though, but that's not what we're hearing. We're hearing he is resigning. He didn't show up to work this morning. In the coming days, there's a good chance he'll be out. If he gets out now, he may be able to claim he's fighting the good fight still, and who knows, go back to podcasting, but not so fast. It was Dan who found the video with the missing minute. He was the one who vouched for it, telling Kash he did a thorough review of that whole 10-hour video and promising it would end the matter altogether. In fact, he told us this on Fox News and convinced Kash to run with this story. Watch.
There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does not.
There's video of him killing himself.
No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay, there was only one camera. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this, we are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him. Right. There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know.
This whole thing is just a major cluster, just such a self-inflicted wound. Now Wired reporting that metadata from the raw Jeffrey Epstein prison video was in fact modified. The missing minute explanation never making a lick of sense, to me at least. The outlet saying they analyzed the 10-hour prison video with independent video forensics experts who concluded the raw footage was definitely modified, likely using the professional editing tool Adobe Premiere Pro, showing the file appears to have been assembled from at least 2 source clips, saved multiple times, exported, and then uploaded to the DOJ's website, where it was presented as raw footage. And look, we know there's something here. You can tell because everybody is silent. No one's talking about it. Not just the Trump administration, but the Dems and mainstream media. The media as well. This is like the most juiciest political cover-up story Trump enemies could ever ask for, yet they're not touching it. Why aren't they touching it? Why aren't they running with it? That Trump's covering something up. If Dems were smart, they'd jump all over it, but no one's talking about it. The whole thing stinks to high heaven. Let me know if you think Dan's in the right here. I've heard conversation that people think he might be who's leaking to Axios. He's claimed he hasn't, that he never has. This whole thing is such a disappointment. We don't want to see this happening. This is what happens, though, when you do things incorrectly, when you're perceived to be lying to people. Then to top it off, Deputy AG Todd Blanche weighing in Friday morning on X, saying that he worked closely with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino on the joint FBI and DOJ memo regarding the Epstein files. That's the 2-page memo that got leaked to Axios about this, saying we are not releasing anything else on Epstein. Writing, we all signed off on the contents of the memo, we all agreed, and the conclusions stated in the memo. Unbelievable, just unbelievable. In another story, shocking story, former U.S. Representative George Santos going on Tucker Carlson and claiming members of Congress were caught having sex with staffers in basement cages. Cages. Inside government buildings. Watch what he said.
I'm not in the business of throwing friends under the bus.
Right.
But in confidence, I've had actually reporters come to me and tell me of how members invite them to their offices. Oh, I have a scoop for you, and then make moves on them.
In the office.
In the office. In their
There's
office.
There's some weird sex stuff going on in Congress now. I keep hearing about this. Was that your experience?
My experience was that it's a dirty place. I bought up to, I can't believe I'm giving all of this.
No, but I keep hearing this from like members that I know, and it's like, really?
I brought up to Brian Stile, the chairman of the admin committee. One of my staffers, there's something called the cages in Congress, which is a storage units for us, right? Those are the congressional cages.
Underneath
in the basement of every congressional house office building. So I was in Longworth, and we're like, there's some stuff in the cages we might want to go check before we order supplies. And I'm like, the cages? That sounds pretty racy. I'm like, what's that? They're like, oh no, boss, it's the storage unit. I'm like, oh, okay, let me go there with you guys. He's like, no, boss, you shouldn't go there. I'm like, why? And he's like, well, there's some rumors. People are going out down there and having sex. I'm like, wait, is this serious? So I know a few other staffers from other members. So I went to some chief of staffs that I've known from the campaign time. When you're campaigning, you're talking a lot more to chiefs than you are to staff, to the actual member.
Of course.
So you built those relationships as a freshman. So I knew a couple of chiefs, and I like, yeah, it's, it happens. Like, what am I going to do? Be the cock blocker, the sex police? I don't have time for that. I'm like, there's no remedy to this? They're like, no. I'm like, why don't we put cameras down there to create deterrence? So I approached this novel idea, which is like, we're talking about installing like maybe 6 cameras in each one of these sections, to Brian Stile. And he says, oh, we don't have time to focus on this. This is all based on baseless rumors. Then I learn that former members were caught having sex with staffers down in the cages. And that's why cameras will never go up.
No way.
Yeah. So this is what we're dealing with. I mean, the last place on earth I ever thought I'd have to deal with sex scandals was in the government building.
But why in the government building? Like, everyone has a house, right?
Can I tell you something? I think part of it is this dominance fetish problem that they have in DC.
Interesting. What is that?
It's the power. Like, we're in Congress. I'm a staffer of the Hill, and you're coming here to service me. That's the mentality, whether you're a member or a staff or whatever, it's a dirty mentality. And I'm from New York. I have a high threshold for dirty and sleazy, but even for me, that kind of went like a notch above. And I'm like, I don't comprehend this. This is a government building. We're supposed to be boring. Sex was never in the job description.
In another devastating story, President Trump approving $300 million in weapons to Ukraine drawn from U.S. Pentagon stockpiles. This is the first time President Trump is set to use his authority to send weapons to Ukraine from Pentagon reserves. Until now, the Trump administration has only transferred arms that were previously approved from the prior administration, from Joe Biden, that were in queue from Biden. A few days ago, Trump said this when asked about Putin. Watch.
That was a war that should have never happened, and a lot of people are dying, and it should end. And I don't know, we get a lot of bull thrown at us by Putin. For you want to know the truth, he's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
Trump clearly getting fed up with Vladimir Putin, but also being fed up with his inability to end it quickly. Something he's learned is not your typical conflict. Way too many interests at play. The Ukraine war was likely the West's long-term plan to break up Mother Russia, its last stand to do so. The EU, Britain's dying reign, using their remaining power, MI6, their financial leverage, the financial octopus that is London. The project, though, failing, Putin realizing it's just easier. It's just so much easier to just end this enormous mess by just winning the war, not cutting a deal. Let's just win the war, which brings us to this morning. Watch.
Russian drones hit a maternity hospital in Ukraine overnight. I know. You'll be seeing things happen.
What in the world is happening to America first? I went along with Iran mostly because it got to a point where I believe Trump made the best choice he could at the time, bombing those nuke sites. I just feel like that was the best thing to do at that moment. But continuing to fund Ukraine, it's a step too far. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think Trump continuing this policy of funding Ukraine with American weapons, will it help end the war? Do you think it'll really make any difference at all? Or will we just end up helping to keep this going for 4 more years? Let me know what you think. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.